No matter what you thought of Episode 1, Phantom Menace, and Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Episode 3 was a very important movie because this was the first time that Anakin was going to become Darth Vader. Let's review Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith stars Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Samuel L. Jackson, and is directed by George Lucas. What's up, guys? We are smack dab in the middle of my Star Wars franchise reviews. I've reviewed 1 and 2. Today we're doing 3. After this, I'm going to be doing brand new reviews for Solo, Rogue One, and then we're going to continue with the original trilogy. So I'll put a card right here for my playlist for all my Star Wars reviews. You probably don't want to go back and watch my old reviews for The Force Awakens because I had some audio problems back then. I guess you can, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to jumping back into Force Awakens and The Last Jedi because my opinion on The Last Jedi is very different than that first review I did, which is kind of embarrassing now if I go back and look at it. I said some pretty strong words that were kind of stupid. I get myself in trouble sometimes. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that you, no, not you, you behind you, the guy that hates The Last Jedi, will eventually grow to love it. I truly believe that. But Episode 3, wow, what a beast of a movie. This movie is one of my, I'll go ahead and say it, one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I love this one immensely. And I think it's leaps and bounds better than what came before it, thankfully. You know, this is the movie that's going to introduce Darth Vader. And it could be bad. It could have been a bad movie. And how horrible would that have been if the first time we see Darth Vader, you know, chronologically, that movie being a dud. You know, some people might think this movie's a dud. I definitely don't. I'm the opposite end of that spectrum. But first off, I guess the little backstory for me personally, because everybody has their own Star Wars stories, right? For me, though, I remember this is like the one Star Wars movie that I waited in line for more than an hour for. All the other ones I was able to get in pretty quick. I remember Phantom Menace, I saw it at like 9 o'clock in the morning, believe it or not, in Miami. So I saw that one pretty quick. Kind of the same deal with Attack of the Clones. This one, though, this was like such an important movie to me. I wanted to see this one so bad. So I literally went opening day with a friend who I'm going to shout out now, Larry Durnay, who is a great friend of mine. We met in the military. We've been great friends ever since. He's a Halloween brother, too. But we went and held the line for 3 hours up until my wife and my daughter came to finally see it with us. They got lucky. They showed up and then they got to walk right in the theater. But me, no. 3 hours I waited for this thing. The guy that was in the front of the line, he actually had one of those portable DVD players and he was watching Episode 1 and Episode 2 before this movie. So some great memories seeing Episode 3. So I guess let's jump right into the plot synopsis of this. Like I said, this is Darth Vader, guys. Freaking massive. So anyway, this one takes place, I think, a couple years after Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Because if you remember, there was the Clone Wars, a couple seasons of that between Episode 2 and this movie. And I have seen those movies. I'm not going to be reviewing them, but I will say some great stuff there. And I would highly recommend watching that stuff before you get to Episode 3 if you haven't seen that. There might be 1 or 2 viewers out there that have never seen Star Wars before. So for those couple of people, this is for you. Make sure you see the Clone Wars. But at the beginning of this movie, it's a rescue, actually. You have Anakin and Obi-Wan. This is a big space battle, and they are rescuing Palpatine. He is captured by Count Dooku. As we all know, Palpatine, he has everybody on a string, and nobody knows what he's doing. The guy's a genius. And so he orchestrates all this stuff that's happening. But of course, you know, Anakin and Obi-Wan, they go to rescue the Chancellor. And just jumping right into it, this opening scene is so great. This is like a good 20-minute chunk of the movie. It starts off with this great space battle, because I don't remember a great space battle in Episode 2 and Episode 1. We hadn't really seen that. Whereas like in the original trilogy, there were great space battles. But this is the first time in the prequel trilogy that, you know, we got to see that type of stuff. And you got the buzz droids in there. A lot of fun stuff in this space battle. It looks freaking glorious. I will say that. I had major problems with the CGI and the special effects in Attack of the Clones. Not in this movie. But also, just to quickly highlight too, the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin. From this opening scene, you can tell that they are great friends. Obi-Wan is a great mentor. Anakin has matured quite a bit. We even see the scar on his face from the Clone Wars. Watch the Clone Wars, by the way. But yeah, you can tell that Anakin has really matured into a great Jedi, just from his, like flight abilities. He has honed his craft. He is a seasoned pro. And as soon as they get into one of the Star Destroyers, the action literally jumps out of the ship that they're flying in to break into the Star Destroyer. But I remember watching this, I'm gripping my seat, I'm loving how this movie is beginning, and then they get in there, Palpatine, his hands are, he's handcuffed to the chair, and then we see Dooku. And then there is this battle with Dooku. We saw the battle with Dooku in Attack of the Clones. Dooku is facing a different opponent this time, especially in Anakin. Anakin handles him like it's nobody's business. That alone shows you how, he even says, my powers have doubled since the last time you've seen me. And by the way, can I highlight, I'm going to be all over the place in this review, but can I highlight when he says my powers have doubled? If you really listen to the cadence and the way he delivers that line, it's just so subtle, but it almost sounds like Darth Vader actually saying that line.
I've been looking forward to this.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count.
Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
That's one thing that I'm going to highlight in this review too, is Hayden Christensen's performance and his descent into madness and eventually becoming Darth Vader. I think it was genius. But this is the first time that Anakin has really put to the test in terms of becoming one with the dark side. Palpatine tells him, do it, kill Dooku, and he literally decapitates the guy.
Do it.
I love that scene because there's this look of regret on Anakin's face, like, what the hell did I just do? He knows that he has made a decision that he can't take back. This is something that he'll have to carry with him for the rest of his life. And this is the first baby step into his descent into the dark side. And so they rescue Palpatine. They get back to Coruscant. And this is where Obi-Wan and Anakin split off. Again, like they split off in the last movie. Obi-Wan is sent to Utapau because there's this big war that's going on right now. We're at like the end of the Clone Wars. And Anakin, he stays back and hangs with the Chancellor, Palpatine. And this whole segment of the movie is where Palpatine really just starts working Anakin. Anakin, he is at odds with the Jedi. They have denied him the rank of Master because Palpatine wants to appoint Anakin as his personal assistant, I guess you could say. And the Jedi are surprised by this. They're like, you haven't really earned that right yet. And so we will not grant you the rank of Master. And really that is kind of the seed that starts turning Anakin away from the Jedi and leaning him towards Palpatine and eventually Darth Sidious. That scene where he eventually realizes this is Darth Sidious. This is someone that is on the dark side. And at first, he wants to turn him in, but there's always that cloud in the back of his head. This is the person that can save Padme. And if you remember that scene, one of my favorite scenes in the movie actually is when they go to the show and the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise and how powerful he was. And the performance of Ian McDiarmid in this scene is so underrated and so flawless. He seduces Anakin with the dark side.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
With the dark side, the chains are released, whereas in the Jedi, you have to conform, you have to abide by certain rules when it comes to your powers. Whereas in the dark side, you have free reign, you can do whatever you want, and you can possibly bring those that you love back from the dead, or keep them from dying. And that's very seductive for a confused Jedi, like Anakin was. So Palpatine in this is just so genius, how he manipulates Anakin throughout this movie. Because if he wasn't cunning, if he wasn't seductive, then Anakin probably would have saw right through him, which he actually does in one of the scenes. And Palpatine calculates that. He knows that there is going to be this moment where Anakin does realize what's going on and that Palpatine does actually work for the dark side. But he still brings him over. And I think that's amazing. So after all this is said and done, amidst all this battle, we got the Battle of Kashyyyk with the Wookiees. We have the battle over at Utapau where Obi-Wan is going against General Grievous. And can you imagine just like right in the middle of all that's going on, you take all the clone troopers who are on the side of the Jedi and you just make them flip just like that with Order 66. So before we get to that freaking chaotic last, I'd say hour of this movie where Anakin really takes the turn. First off, let's talk about Obi-Wan and General Grievous. General Grievous was a character that was created, I think, during the Clone Wars. And in the Clone Wars, they really showcase Grievous's power. And that's another reason why I think it's essential to watch Clone Wars, because Grievous is not an alien to be messed with. I will say that right now. He's just so cool looking. He has like those 6 lightsabers. And if you look at the Clone Wars, he is pretty much destroying, like slaying anybody that comes in his path. Except for Mace Windu when he eventually uses the Force to get the best of him. So he is fighting Obi-Wan injured in this movie. And a lot of people that haven't seen the Clone Wars, they might not know that. That's why he's coughing all the time. But I found him so interesting because he's kind of like Vader in a way, you know? He's part alien and then part machine, much like Vader. And he's even more machine than Vader, actually. And it makes you wonder, like, what his backstory is. Was he at one time just a straight-up alien? Now, so many things factor into why Anakin's descent into madness and into Darth Vader, why it works so well. First off, the score in Episode 3, I think, is the best score out of the whole franchise. Just because it really leans on emotion so much, leans on tragedy. You know, there are some fun moments in there, especially in that first like half hour when they're in the space battle. But pretty much from the middle on, there are some pretty somber notes. You have that moment where Anakin is in one building and then Padme is in another. And there's just this quiet moment where Anakin, there's tears just rolling down his face. And he does not want to lose Padme. He loves her so much that he's willing to turn to the dark side to do it. And you can tell in that one scene that there's just so much emotion behind Hayden Christensen's eyes. I think he really portrayed Anakin in such a beautiful way in that scene. And really, I think that scene is like so important. If you didn't have that scene, then I don't think it would sell his turn as effectively. And talk about freaking sadness. The scene where Order 66 happens, and all the Jedi are just completely shot down by the clone troopers. The music that plays during that scene and just seeing Yoda just kind of doubled over in sadness. You know, that's the first time we've seen Yoda harken so much emotion, and it's just so effective. And then you got Anakin's actually killing children, killing younglings, as it's stated in the movie. This is something that we never expected to see. You know, even though as evil as Darth Vader is, we never expected him to kill children. But he does it. You know, that's how far Anakin will go to save Padme. You know, ultimately that's what he wants to do in the end. He wants to save Padme. That's it. He is definitely power hungry, but I think if Padme wasn't in danger, then he wouldn't have crossed to the dark side. So all this leads up to the confrontation between Obi-Wan and Anakin. First off, you have this amazing lightsaber choreography. It rivals the choreography with Darth Maul in the first movie. Might even be better. But then you have all this emotion that is just layered on top of it all. You have this beautiful setting of Mustafar, the planet Mustafar. Plus there's just that added element of danger there. You know, they're literally on this like lava planet. And if they fall into it, fight or no fight, you're gonna be dead. But the exchange between Anakin and Obi-Wan is just heartbreaking. Because the last time they talked to each other, Anakin was apologizing to Obi-Wan, you know, thanking him for the training that he gave him. And so that was the last time they talked to each other civilly. And then you have this moment right here where Obi-Wan sneaks on the ship and he ends up going to Mustafar with Padme. And Anakin is so crazy at this moment that he literally almost kills Padme, you know, by force choking her. And so there's this like build during that conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin. And Obi-Wan's telling Anakin, you are lost. You know, you have gone so far. What you have done, you can't come back from it. And I pretty much have to kill you. You're my best friend. I have to kill you. That is pretty damn great. And so, of course, then they have this massive lightsaber battle. Meanwhile, you have Yoda, who is being a complete badass, fighting Darth Sidious. And again, it's pretty heartbreaking because Sidious is a very dangerous opponent, even for Yoda. And so the scene where Yoda, he has to escape, he says, I have to go into exile. I have failed. I just felt so bad for him. And then finally, you know, Anakin's ultimate end and transition into Darth Vader. Everybody knows that famous scene, Obi-Wan, he's on top of the hill and he says, I have the high ground. And he cuts his legs off. And George Lucas did not hold back in this scene at all. This is the only Star Wars movie, I believe, that is rated PG-13, or at least up to this point. And I gotta say, that scene was handled so well. You know, when he burns to death and he's screaming, and he says, I hate you, just completely heartbreaking. So by the time we get to the end of the movie and we see Darth Vader coming up, there's literally steam coming off of his body. It's such an iconic scene. And thankfully, Hayden Christensen actually got to wear the costume. He begged George Lucas to let him wear the costume, and he does. And really, Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, probably my second favorite behind Empire, because of all the emotion that's in it, because of how beautiful the film looks, because of the performance by Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan Kenobi. This, I think, was on another level compared to Attack of the Clones. If we could have gotten 3 movies at this level, then the prequel trilogy would have easily rivaled the original trilogy, because I think Episode 3 is even better than, you know, A New Hope and Return of the Jedi. And I know that's a pretty bold statement. I love the movie that much. And even people that hate the prequel trilogy, they'll still admit that Episode 3 is a decent movie, actually. I think it's an amazing movie, if I'm being honest. It's probably one of the Star Wars movies that I like watching the most. So I'm going to give Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, a Trapped on an Island. It deserves every bit of that ranking. So guys, that's it. That is the review for Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this movie. Also, look for my future Star Wars reviews coming soon. And check out the previous reviews that I have done for Episode 1 and Episode 2. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays we do Free For All Fridays. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And Drumdum out.